Revered by both his students and peers, Tony Calabro's contributions and influence on the Gippsland music scene cannot be overstated. With a mentoring technique that has produced some of the world's best guitarists, Tony continues to influence the paths of tomorrow's musicians. We spoke with Tony at his studio about his career and his philosophy on teaching. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tony Calabro.
The Calabro name, within the Valley, Gippsland, Australia. You obviously come from a musical family?
Actually, no.
No?
To the best of my knowledge, I'm the first Calabro to actually play a musical instrument, to the best of my knowledge. My father was a good singer, and my mother had a nice voice, and Dad particularly loved singing. He had a lovely voice. Yeah. So we had music in the home all the time. From a very young age, I remember having a passion for music and loving it. If we went to a family wedding or a friend's wedding, Mum and Dad always knew where I was. I was always in front of the band, Yeah. So that's my first recognition and acknowledgement that I love music, okay? Yeah. It wasn't until much later that I actually started playing guitar, and actually I began as a singer. I don't know if you knew that or not. No. Yeah, I began as a singer in a rock and roll band called Priority, which had Ken McTaggart, Ray Wall, Jimmy Pendleton and Roland Thompson. That was the first original band, and look, they were very kind to give me an opportunity to sing for them, and that's what I did for about 3 years. And it was when that band broke up, which I was then about age 21, that I actually started to play guitar, just self-taught, just a few chords and a couple of riffs and things like that. And that's how the guitar came into my life,
So what was the moment where you thought, I've got to do this, I have to do this, what sparked you to pick that guitar up? What was that moment?
I guess it began, Priority used to play a lot. We did jobs in Meenian and Lakes Entrance and, the Longwarry Dance. We sort of travelled a lot. And it was my life, it was every Friday night or Saturday night. And when the band broke up, I got a little bit lonely, and so I thought, I didn't know what to do with myself. So that's when I picked up the guitar and started playing. And there is a God, because if you look at my life, everything seems to have fallen into place as if there was a plan there before I even planned it. I was studying civil engineering and hated it, and I worked as a civil engineer for the City of Morwell, and for about 3 to 4 months or something, and I did a road up in the Geraldines, and I thought it was okay, but I can't see myself doing this for the rest of my life. As I was feeling that, a music store opened up in Morwell called Keynote Music Centre in George Street, opposite the Express, and I was there nearly every day. And they noticed something about me in people's skills, because when they were on the phone, I'd help a customer, and they'd have guitars on the wall, and I'd say, can I help you? They're a bit busy at the moment. And they were observing me without me knowing about it. And after a while, they said, if you taught guitar for us, we'd sell more guitars. And I said, but I can hardly play myself. And they said, yeah, but you know more than a beginner, so we'll advertise for beginners. And if you plan 10 lessons ahead, your beginners are never going to catch up with you, because you'll do the next 10 and so on. And I thought about that, and they offered me a job. And at that time, the principal of the university that I was studying civil engineering said the same thing to me. He said, Tony, I don't think your heart's in engineering. Why don't you take a break? Find out what life's about, and you'll do two things. You'll either come back and become a really good engineer because you're smart enough, or you'll find another career and you'll be a lot happier. So Keynote Music Centre opened up, gives me this opportunity, and I thought, I'll give it a go for 12 months. And if I can't make a living after 12 months, I'll go back to engineering. Well, after 12 months, I was that busy as a guitar teacher. I was making more money than an engineer, and I thought, this is what I'm going to do. Wow. And here I am 47 years later. 47 years later, still doing it.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's how it came up.
Wow. It's when you said a music shop opened up in Morwell, I thought, it's got to be Barry. No, even before Barry.
Keynote Music Centre.
Wow.
It was the biggest store of its kind at that time, they used to sell organs, piano, guitars, records, as it was, sheet music, you know. And we're talking about mentors before.
Yeah.
David and Steph Rickard were great mentors to me. They gave me the confidence I needed to believe in myself that I could do this, you know. But what I did that I guess other people hadn't done before my time is that I took the initiative to go to Melbourne and have professional lessons. Yeah. And that took me years ahead of my peers. You know, I was so blessed to have Laurie Ralphs first of all for 2.5 years, and then I had Barry Morton, you know, and then Joe Pass and Ike Isaacs and all the great people came afterwards, you know. But if I hadn't taken that initiative, I'd still be playing like everybody else, what you can pick up from a record, you know.
And again, like we were chatting about this before, but it just showed like the importance of having a good teacher, a good mentor.
Absolutely.
To open up, you know, you may only know this much of a world that is enormous. And I think going to lessons and learning theory, technique, and all of the different styles, it's really important. You know, like being able to, you know, speak the language and read that book, so to speak.
That's right.
You know, and a lot of your students who I've also played with in bands over the years, they've all got their technique nailed, you know, they've got their theory, and they can play so many different styles.
I'm glad you pointed that out. You know, when somebody rings me for guitar lessons, I say to them that I'm not willing to compromise what I think's important, and it's in your best interest as well as my best interest, okay? And I don't compromise because the program that I've come up with has produced the very best guitar players this region's ever seen. Okay, and you know that very well yourself. So why would I compromise this program? Instead, I explain to them what's involved, and if they're happy to join, I'm happy to teach them. But if they just say, look, I just want to learn Smoke on the Water or Stairway to Heaven, or, you know, and there's nothing wrong with any of those things. They're all good things to learn, right? I say, no. If you do my program, you will be able to do those things and a heck of a lot more. And that's what, you know, I would be lying to you if I said there was another way. If there was a better way, I'd be using it, you know.
Are you still learning yourself?
Oh, constantly. I'm constantly studying and practicing and researching, you know. So it's for me as well, you know. Yeah.
Just staying that 10 lessons ahead.
10 lessons ahead. It was funny,
great.
I used to give workshops. At the end of every term, I'd get all my students together and the families, and all the students would play together, and I'd give them experience to perform up on the stage, and you may have come to one or two of them, you know. And there was question time, and one guy, funny guy, and I said, "Is there any questions?" He said, "Are you still 10 lessons ahead of us?"
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I said, "Well, there's a few more lessons ahead of now." Yeah, but that comes with hard work and persistence and practicing the right things, you know, listening to the right things. I often say to my students, listening is practice. What you put in eventually comes out. You know, you put crap in, crap comes out. You put good stuff in, good stuff will come out eventually. There's a rub-off effect, you know. And I've seen it with my own children, you know. I don't know if you know, but it was a law in my house that my children learnt music, whether they liked it or not, till 15, because that was school leaving age in those days. And the reason why I did that was that I was observing as a teacher young children coming to me develop a higher IQ. They develop more confidence. They develop better time management, better discipline. And parents would say to me, I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but since our daughter or our son's been studying with you, the reports are better at school. And that was happening far too frequently. And then I did research in it, and I noticed that worldwide there was a trend that children who studied music the best way did do better at school. So my wife and I made it a rule. Schools don't provide the same education as I do when it comes to music and guitar, okay? Our kids will do it whether they like it or not, till 15. And then at 15, I gave them the choice. You may discontinue if you want now, you know, or whatever. And well, Jacinta, Daniel and John are amazing musicians. Well, you know Daniel already, you know, amazing. And they would have given up after 2 weeks. You know, we had plenty of times when there was tears and whatever, you know, but I would, as you said, a teacher must mentor and encourage, and I would explain to them why we're making them do that, you know. And there's one little funny story, if I may. My son John, when he was 8, I came in for dinner and he was watching one of the shows, and I said, John, have you done your practice? And he said, no, not yet. And I said, well, it's nearly bedtime. You know the rules. Switch the TV off, go and do your practice. Didn't yell, didn't belt him. He went into his room, came back about 3 minutes later. Why can't a kid give up when he's 8?
Oh no.
Beautiful. I put him on my lap and I encouraged him and I said, look, I'll explain to you why. And I said, look at how well Daniel and Jacinta are going. Now, what happens when you become an adult and you've given up at 8 and they've kept going with their guitar, and then you see them as successful people and you'll say to me, Dad, why did you make me give up? I was only a kid. Well, to John's credit, he went back to his room, he did his practice, and he never gave me a hard time ever again, right? And all 3 kids are very successful now in their businesses that they run, you know, and they're still incredible musicians, you know, as you know, so that's why I do it. Now, if I keep that a secret, I'm doing a great disservice to my community. When a parent comes in here, I tell them the benefits my own children have got from learning to play guitar and music, but the proper way, the real fair income way, just like you learn maths and English the proper way, you know. So do you want your child to do well in life? Yes, it won't always be easy. They'll sometimes say no, they don't want to practice, but are you going to keep them from school? If they say, I don't want to go to school today, Mum, I want to sleep in. Are you going to keep them from going to the dentist? Are you going to say, don't have a shower, don't brush your teeth? You know certain things are good for your children. You're the parents, you know, and so much depends on parents with little kids, you know.
Yeah.
You know? Now, I think I sent Brett a little video of a little kid, Josh Ness, playing a little tune in a couple of days. He nailed it, right? That mother's unbelievable with that kid. The kid's going incredibly well. He's only 9, he's reading music, he's playing classical guitar, he's playing rock and roll, he knows what chords belong in a certain key, you know, and he's only 9. You know, watch out for him in years to come. But look, I teach all ages. I think my oldest at the moment is 66 and the youngest is 8. Yeah. The oldest I've ever taught's 80. And so age is not a barrier. It's all about persistence and a commitment to wanting to do and follow the plan. You know, if I say do this, this, this and this, and you ignore that, then I can't help you. You have to follow the plan, you know.
How much does raw talent have to do with it?
That's a fantastic question. I'm going to be politically incorrect. Talent's got nothing to do with it. Talent's got nothing to do with it. It's all about persistence. It's all about hard work. I've known lots of very talented people get nowhere because they don't have the commitment to practice the things they need to do. The problem with most naturally gifted people is that they usually only do what comes naturally easy to them. Now, if you take them outside of that comfort zone, such as reading music, which doesn't come naturally easy to most people, okay? They don't want to do it, they don't get good at it. Or technique, they've got a bad habit and you're trying to break the habits. This feels more comfortable, you know. So often talented people don't get to their full potential because of that. Now, if you get somebody that is talented and works really well, they just take off like a rocket, you know. I mean, Jack Jones was a very naturally gifted young boy, you know. Now, when he came to me to begin with, I'm sure Ronaldo, if he watches this show, won't mind, but he wasn't a model student. And there came a time when I wanted to sack him. And I rang Ronaldo and I said, Ronaldo, Jack's very talented. He's a very bright boy, right? But I feel guilty taking your money. I mean, I have to be responsible on that as well. You know, they're paying me good money. I want them to get good value for money. And Ronaldo said, look, leave it with me. They had a bit of a chat at home, and apparently she said we had tears and yelling and pulling of hair. And then she rang me up and said, look, can you give him another term? He came back a different boy. He took off like a rocket like I'd never seen before. By the time he was 14, he was playing in 6 bands, and the best bands in Latrobe Valley, doing a variety of styles, turning heads. He was scaring people. People were ringing me up for lessons, saxophone players, bass players, drummers. What the hell have you done with Jack? What are you teaching him, you know? I kid you not. I had a saxophone playing in here learning about modes and scales and how to improvise, you know. I had a bass player, I told you his name before, I won't mention it on air just in case, right? Asking me what's the difference between C7 and C major 7, you know. So that was a good thing, it was an exciting period there. So he had talent, he finally had commitment, and he took off. And by the time he was 16, he was playing with the best people in Australia. you know.
Mate, I remember going to the music nights that
Yeah.
the teachers had put together when we were younger.
Yeah.
And everybody was talking to me, you got to see this 16-year-old.
Yes,
He was only 16, man. He was only like a couple of years older than us. And it was Brad Kypriotis that said, we've got to see this guy. He's amazing, you know. And he was playing with, he's playing with Lee, Grando, Steve Schultz.
Yeah. He played in sophisticated swing too for a while.
Yeah.
Reading charts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this guy blew us. And Rennie was singing.
Yeah.
And I think Trevor might have been
Bass player.
But you know, he's playing with all the we used to
guys.
call the big guys. You know, the people that we used to look up to. And here he is with his long hair and his tank top and everything, and he's only a couple of years older than us, and he's just shredding it. You know, he's just killing it, man. And it was unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And always a nice young man. Always a very nice, polite, respectful young man. Yeah. You know. So see, there was a rub-off effect there because Jack was doing so well. Everybody started practicing again.
Yeah.
You know? That's a positive. You know.
I know a couple of your students that I've played with that have, you know, but it's a good thing. You need to see other people play. Yeah. You need to see, you know, your student. You need to see, you know, what he's doing, what someone else is doing.
That's right.
And I think that's missing these days. You know, it used to be like great to be able to go out and be inspired and influenced.
Yes.
And it's really important to see, like for students to see their teachers.
Yeah.
Like, they like to see them play.
They do, yeah,
you know, like, oh wow, you know, I wish I could do that. Oh, now I know why he's teaching me that.
Yes.
You know,
it all falls into place.
Yeah. So you've had quite a few students that have gone on to do some pretty big things.
I'm very blessed, aren't I? Yeah, absolutely.
So, are there any stories you want to share about those boys?
Yeah, well, there was a guy called Ben Carey who played with Savage Garden for a little while. Yeah, and he's playing in a band in Los Angeles now, quite renowned, called Lifehouse, I think. He's still doing very well in Los Angeles. And Troy McCubbin's over there. Jack Jones, of course. And Steve McKay. I don't know if you know about Steve McKay at all. Steve McKay did a bit of a stint with Delta Goodrem for a while. He was her musical director and guitar player. Here's one I didn't want to teach. You know, it was a funny story there. He saw my son John play in the Stedfords in the Lavella College band, and he was playing in the Lee and Gather band in the Stedfords, and he saw John, and John was playing the right chords. You know, B flat 13 and G7 sharp 5. John was doing the right chords, and Steve was just playing power chords, a B flat power chord and a G power chord. He got by, you know. And when he saw him play after the event, he said, "You're playing all the right chords, man. What's your name?" And he said, "John Calabro." And he said, "Oh, are you related to Tony Calabro?" And he said, "He's my dad." He said, "Oh, I've been trying to get in with your dad. He's always booked out." And long story short, he found out that Steve lives in Inverloch. And I've got a beach house in Inverloch. So he said, "Look, next time Mum and Dad come over to the beach, come and meet Dad." So he met me, and he's, you know. Now, Steve, very talented guy. An ear like Superman. He could play a Tommy Emmanuel track like Blue Moon or Day Tripper, you know, sounding like 3 guitars. Close your eyes, you reckon it was Tommy Emmanuel. But he didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know if it was a D chord or a G chord or an A minor chord, or, you know. And he said, "I'm just getting nowhere and I'm so frustrated. Would you have me for a student?" I said, "No." "Why not?" I said, "Well, when you play as well as you play, to do the things we have to do that you didn't do the first time, it's going to drive you nuts, and me 5 times more so. So no thanks. Keep doing what you're doing, keep learning, have fun." Well, this went on for months and months and months. And in this drawer here, I've got a letter that he wrote to me, which is really funny. And the gist of it is, "I find you a very inspirational man. You're very knowledgeable. Will you please teach me? I'll do anything. I'll mow your lawns. I'll deflea your dog. I'll have lentil lasagna. I'll do anything."
Lentil lasagna.
Well, at that I buckled. And I said, "All right, Steve, I'll tell you what. I'll teach you, but you give me one hard time and you're out of here." Well, he stayed with me about maybe 2.5 years, got him to read music all over the net, got him to understand what B flat 13 was and what you can do in place of it. Then he went to Melbourne, and you know, he's been a man of the gift of the gab, got a gig with Delta Goodrem, and he published a book called Simply Guitar, and it's sold already over 1.3 million copies. So now he's playing in a band called the 12-Foot Ninja. Isn't that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's Steve,
yes.
right?
Yeah, with Russ, yes.
Yeah. Now, I was teaching at that time a student called Rowan Hayes, who's a really good guitar player, right? He gave me heartburn for 5 years, and he'll tell you that, right? And in the end, I must have said something, and I found out what it was. He took off like a rocket, and in the next 5 years, because he's with me about 11 years, next 6 years, he became an amazing guitar player, became a fan of Steve McKay, and he learnt one of his songs, but he played it better than Steve, and he sent it to him. Steve writes to me, I don't know what the hell you've done with Rowan. He's playing one of my songs, and he's scaring the shit out of me because he's playing it even better than me. That's great. Now those two became friends and play in 12-Foot Ninja.
Yeah.
And they're touring all over the world, playing to thousands of people.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it's, yeah. And of course, my brother Peter, we can't forget my brother Peter. He's a fantastic guitar player, you know.
We're just going to interject there.
Yeah.
As much as we could express the respect of Tony's students, we thought we'd let them speak for themselves.
Hello to my good friend Tony Calabro. This is Brad Kipriotis from Sydney. The secret to my success with Tony was definitely having Brett Lee in the lesson before me. I'd get my mum to bring me in 10 to 15 minutes early every week just to sit in on Brett's lesson, and basically get 2 lessons for the price of 1. But just to hear Tony play was so inspirational. So any time that I could spend with him was well worth it.
My background with Tony is about 10 or 11 years of lessons, and you know, I think I was actually just telling a student then that the first 5 of my time with Tony were, you know, I think I caused him a lot of headaches, but I think the aha moment, if I was to pinpoint one, was just one lesson where I came in probably with 20 minutes of preparation behind me. It was a little bit of a, you know, if you're going to do this, mate, do it properly, or see you later, you're out.
I was a kid. I was about 14 years old. I met a guy called Jack Jones, who was actually one of my heroes growing up. And because of that meeting, he told me about this amazing guitar teacher, Tony Calabro. We found a way of getting in touch with you, and you were too busy to take new students, but Jack picked up the phone and called you, and you made a space for me. Because you made that space for me, here I am today bumping along on a highway somewhere in the middle of America. So basically it's all your fault.
I recorded the greatest message ever a video ago, but my sound has gone weird, so I'm using this hands-free thing. Anyway, technology. Tony Calabro, when someone says, imagine an excellent guitar teacher with a holistic approach, a principle-focused person that cares passionately about imparting the wisdom of the greats onto anyone who comes to them for guitar lessons. I imagine a little Italian bloke named Tony Calabro. I gotta say, he definitely had a massive impact on me. Every lesson was like 50 lessons.
Tony, mate, how you going? Just wanted to say a big g'day from Los Angeles. Here I am in my studios here in North Hollywood, Prohibition Studios, and what can I say, mate? It's been 20 years since I left Australia. I can't even believe that. That's just nuts. All those years ago when I first started with you, and I think it was a Wednesday afternoon my lessons were around 2:20, and I think I moved up to a double lesson there for a long time. For 8 years you put up with my crap and kicked my butt, and yeah, a lot of ups and downs, so much information, such a great foundation you gave me, and man, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here in Los Angeles living my dream.
All right, well, it's about bloody time someone's done this. Tony, I love you. I miss you.
Oh, God bless you.
It's been a long time since I last saw you, but I think about you every day. And I just feel so grateful for the time that we spent together, and so grateful and thankful to you for your commitment and generosity and compassion and love and stability and mentorship. You're celebrated by many of us every day. And it's nice for you to be recognised for your achievements and your contribution, because it continues to grow. And we are all thankful and hopefully worthy disciples of you out in the world. We keep flying the flag, and for good reason. I love you, mate. Have a great day, and hopefully I'll see you real soon.
Oh, God, that's
Okay?
unreal.
Love you, buddy. Thank you.
Oh, God bless you, mate.
I hope Cabo doesn't mind. Sorry, Cabo. I love you, man. As I was telling you about, in our younger years, I was in a band with Cabo and Kippo, and we were only about 18 or 19 at the time. And Troy, like, he was fine. He was an okay guitar player, but he was frustrated.
Yes, yes.
And we were having a rehearsal. It was one Sunday afternoon, no warning, out of the blue. Cabo just goes, "You know what?" He goes, "You guys don't need me." He goes, "I'm not happy with the way I'm playing." And we just thought, "Well, what's going on here?" And he just started packing his stuff up, and he goes, "I've got to relearn everything. I've got to go to lessons. I need to get better."
Oh, okay.
And just like that, he just packed his stuff up and he went home, and, no hard feelings, all good and all that. And then he come to you and he studied for however many years.
Yes, over 8 years, yeah.
And watching him develop
Yes.
into a different player.
Wow.
That was awesome to
That's
watch.
fantastic.
But for him to just say, "That's it, guys. I'm not happy with the way I am as a musician. I'm going to go and do this." He packed his bags and off he went, and he spent his years with you.
Yes.
And to watch him develop before he moved away, amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing, yes. And it's so satisfying. They're the sorts of stories and things that keep me in the business. I mean, there are times when I say to my wife, "I don't know how much longer I can do this."
Could you stop though? Is it one of those things you'd have to do?
Yeah.
It'd be such a part of your life.
It's a passion.
Yeah,
It's a passion that I have. I don't even know where it comes from.
You just got to do it. Yeah.
The actual program that I use took 13 years to develop. I was saying to Brett earlier that when I first started teaching, I only knew basic chords, a couple of bar chords, a couple of pop songs, and a Jimi Hendrix tune, a Beatle tune, a Rolling Stones tune, etc. And I would just teach kids that sort of stuff, But always there was a method still then, I still wanted people to know what they were doing, and it just grew slowly over the 13 years. The program that I use now covers everything from reading music, how to play by ear, a variety of styles, so how to use the plectrum, classical guitar, how to use fingers, theory, technique, so that I equip the students so well that eventually whatever their heart desires, they'll be able to play. And it's worked, and it's still working. And I have a roster, I have an actual chart with a student's name on it, and we have subjects. You see, I've thought at school they do subjects. They do arithmetic, they do history, they do English, they do art. Why don't we have subjects in music? And that's how it came about. And I've got 7 subjects for the full program, and then eventually it turns into 9 or 10. And so we might do a couple this week, a couple next week. We have a roster like that, and the students, whether they're children or adults, sometimes it even surprises me how good they become, and I'll go in and have a cup of tea with Mary and I'll joke and say, "I think I'll book in with guitar lessons with myself. This is amazing what's happening with this kid, So it's a really good system. And when I went to America 8 years ago, the great Bill Wurtzel, that gentleman there from New York, very busy New York guitar player, he took an interest in my program, and he said, "How did you come up with this system?" He said, "We've got a lot of great guitar players in America, in New York, but none of them teach like you. Has anybody ever done your life story like that?" He spoke to me like that, really passionately. I said, "No, they haven't." "Well, they should." So he rings up this magazine called Just Jazz Guitar, which goes all over the world. And long story short, they did an interview, went for 7 pages, and I'm in that book, and it's all about the teaching program, because they don't need me. They've got many much better guitar players than me in America, but it's the system and the way that I teach, and it's the mentoring that goes with it as well. Yeah, so that's sort of the gist of it, yeah. But I insist on it. They've got to learn to read music, they've got to learn to play by ear and know what they're doing. That's what gives you freedom. You know, I did last night, I said to a kid in one of the lessons, I've never learnt Stairway to Heaven, but I can play it because I can recognise the progressions. And then because I can recognise the progressions, I can do 10 variations on it. So if a kid plays Stairway to Heaven that way, I can do it this way or that way or that way. You know, now if you don't know what you're doing, you'll be like a cockatoo that says, hello cocky, but that's all he says, hello cocky, you know? And he doesn't know what he's saying or how to read and write it, you know? So I insist they understand what they're doing.
It's learning the language, isn't it?
It is, mate,
yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
It's a universal language. A good guitar player isn't necessarily a good guitar teacher. You know, I was watching a YouTube the other night as part of the research that I constantly do, and this guy's talking like a machine gun, and I'm thinking, I understand what he's talking about, but most people are going to look at that and say, what language is he speaking there? You know, he's talking about Lydian flat 7 and melodic minor upper 3rd, and you know, he's a good player, but you've got to have a step-by-step process. Just like with mathematics, you don't learn algebra straight away. You learn 1 + 1 is 2, you know, and 2 × 2 is 4. And then later you learn that A + A = 2A, and A × A = A squared, you know. So yeah, there's a process in place, and it takes time and work.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And you touched on YouTube, and we
Yep.
did chat about this earlier.
Yep.
This era of instant gratification.
Yes.
Do you think this ease of access to so many different musical instructional videos and do you think this is a good thing or a bad thing?
Okay. The good thing is that if you use it as a supplement in conjunction with a good teacher and a good mentor, then it's great. But only as a supplement. If you use it as a substitute for a good teacher, you're going to hit a brick wall eventually. You know, it's not good at all. You know, but if you study with a good teacher, you do the program, and then you go on YouTube for exploration, great. It's a great resource to have. Yeah.
And it's you're spot on. It's I remember when we were kids before the internet.
Yes.
We'd be sitting in the lounge room on a Saturday morning. We'd videotaped Rage or MTV the night before, and we'd all be sitting around the telly on pause, rewind, pause. Where are his hands? Where are his fingers? What's he playing there? What's he doing? You know, and I think that, and I'm not sure if you'd agree or not, but doing it that way, that made you think and it made you listen and it made you draw on what our music teachers were teaching us.
Yes.
Thinking, okay, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Where now it's just like you hop on and someone can just show you how to do it.
Yes.
You know, I don't know if I'm getting old, but...
No, I don't think you are. I think you make a good point. And that's one of the reasons why I encourage good students of mine to get together and jam and play together. See, Bradley Kypriotis used to jam with Troy and Brett Lee, you know, and Daniel used to jam with Brett Lee and the Parr kids, you know, and all that sort of stuff, you know. So I have a group at the moment where they email each other, and there'll be anything from 6 to 12 that turn up in somebody's place and they have a jam session. And what I'm finding is they're more motivated, they see the bigger picture, and they become, every one of them, better students as a result of it, you know. Yeah, so sometimes you've got to make your breaks. You know, if the community doesn't provide it, then you've got to do it, you know.
What's the biggest piece of advice you'd give some kid who's just about to pick a guitar up and think this is pretty cool? I want to play this. I want to do this.
Yep.
What's?
Well, the first thing I start with everybody is you've got to listen. You've got to know who are the best guitar players on the planet. And if you haven't heard of Django Reinhardt, Charlie Christian, Tal Fowler, Wes Montgomery, Bucky Pizzarelli, Joe Pass, Pat Martino, you're already in arrears. You've got to get those guys in your head. And most people that come to me don't know those guys. So it's my duty as a teacher to educate them on what they've got to listen to. That's the first thing you've got to do. And then you've got to be prepared to accept that it won't come in 2 weeks. You know, you're not going to play like Jimi Hendrix in 2 weeks, or Tommy Emmanuel or Joe Pass, you know. But you will and you can play to the best of your potential if you're prepared to work. So a lot of it is based around that listening, being aware, and then acceptance that you've got to work at it. And isn't that the same with anything? My lawn doesn't stay nice unless I mow it. I can't wish it. You know, I've got to get out there and cut it. You know?
Well, from that, I'm going to have a look at your lawn.
Actually, I haven't
Someone said it was pretty nice.
Yeah, fancy him remembering that.
And it's funny, you're watching that back.
Yeah.
You were only just touching on a couple of those instances, and,
Just
and
before
they
it.
brought it up on the video. Yeah, it was
incredible.
great.
Yeah.
Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Tony, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, mate. It's been
Thank
great.
you very, very much, and it's a great honour for me to be on your show.